Hey guys, coming on for Flesh and Bone, episode 6, F.U.B.A.R. And I was definitely looking forward to this episode because of the cliffhanger of the last episode. And also, I've just been really enjoying it. I mean, I think it's been getting better and better as it went on. And while I don't think this was the best episode of the season, I do think this episode gave me what was by far my favorite scene of this show so far. And, guys, I'm currently on the finale. I've seen both episodes 6 and 7. I will review both of them to you guys. So any predictions I make in this video are kind of tedious. They're not really, I don't really need to do it, but of course you guys like it when I make predictions, you guys like it when I create discussion. So, and plus you guys haven't seen, plus if you guys haven't seen episode 7 and you've seen episode 6, this is a way to discuss episode 6 without discussing episode 7. Just know that I've seen episode 7 already. Some of my predictions aren't answered yet though. Some of the questions in this episode are not answered and I like that. But let's get into this episode. And this episode, I think, was kind of like the calm before the storm in some ways, but also had some pretty crazy scenes. Um, Romeo, this is the first episode where I think we really saw Romeo's character. Like, we've been seeing it, but in this episode especially, we really see Romeo's as an actual, like, not like that we didn't see him as a character before, but I feel like we actually got some individual character work with him in this episode. He's at this hut that he's made for himself. I'm to assume it's this hut because it's far away. It's away from the apartment. He has many collectibles he has collected over the years. He gets out this pen, probably trying to write his book, and I thought that was a really great way to start it. So Mia's on the phone with the doctor, asks if he can give her the test results over the phone, and she says her eye is fine, says she'll come by on her lunch break. Ivana comes into rehearsal. She tells Monica the more junk food she eats, her baby will have shit for brains. And Monica says her baby will have an enlightened being with a caustic wit and opposable thumbs. And Monica reminds all the dancers about the Thanksgiving schedule. Yes, this was the Thanksgiving episode. Which the weird thing about this is that when this is going to air, it's going to be like December. So, they really did not schedule this very well. But she tells them about this Thanksgiving schedule that they have off tomorrow off all the way through the weekend. And Trey tells Claire there's nothing worse than going home for the holidays. He said he'd rather get his wisdom teeth pulled, and Claire asks where home for him is, and he says Overland Park, Kansas. And Monica tells them to have a relaxing holiday, and Ivana says now they work and go to the bars. And Claire tells Trey her home is in Pittsburgh, and then Ivana asks Pasha if he is joining them for Thanksgiving, and he says he will make it if she makes Shuba. She says, of course. And I like these moments. It's just little small moments between them I really like. Um, we see that then I can't remember this one girl's name, but they're making fun of Monica, Patrice, and this other girl, I can't remember her name, but they're making fun of Monica, and Claire yells at them and saying Monica's beautiful. She says she's fucking pregnant. They need to have some respect, and we eventually realize why Claire is so defendant later in the episode, which I thought was an amazing reveal. I'll get into that. Basically, she leaves and calls Bryan. She asks how she is, and it's their father, Frank, who asks who's on the phone. Claire asks if he's there, and he says he is. She asks if he's watching football, which of course he is. She asks if he's going to do a turkey and gives him the instructions on how to make it. She asks if Frank's been asking her about her, and Bryan says he told him that she wasn't coming, because he expected that she wasn't coming, and she says maybe she should. And it's interesting because, before she was kind of rejecting Bryan, but now it seems like she actually kind of wants Bryan in her life. She asks if she should come home, and he says up to her, he hangs up. I feel like Bryan telling her what he's going through, I feel like that kind of made her think maybe I should actually be nicer. So Mia goes to the doctor, who tells her to close the door and take a seat. She leaves without us knowing her test results, and I like that. She looks very upset. We don't know what her test results are, and I like that we don't know what actually happened, because it really makes the reveal in episode 7 a lot bigger, and I'll get into that. But she goes to a hot dog cart, orders a hot dog, and at rehearsal, Ross dances with Kiira, and Tony tells them they're beautiful. Says to take the section again with Claire this time around. Kiira's clearly not having it. And after the dance, she looks really upset. After the dance, Tony says she's feeling it, and they felt it too. She says they are all connecting and investing, and she actually got goosebumps that time. I like how they're more accepting of her in this episode, definitely. And she tells, they've just gotten used to her. That's what it is. They've gotten used to her, and she tells them to get out and enjoy their Thanksgiving. Everyone's excited that she sent them home early. She tells them to rest and not be afraid to eat. And I was thinking, okay, I guess we're not going to see a lot of the, of the company in this episode. But then we get to this scene. Paul sits at his desk and Tony comes in and she says she let them out early. They've been killing it. And Paul says he's delighted. Tony says they're an awesome group. They're really responding, even Claire. He asks if she's in a hurry to catch a train, and she says she will walk home, and he asks if she's preparing to enjoy a meal with the family. And she says her folks are flying for him from Illinois, and they love to play mom and pop for all her friends. And he asks about her, and he says he will have a quiet meal. He will have a quiet meal, night bottle on wine, Chinese takeout, and a classic Billy Wilder movie. She tells him to enjoy, and I mean that sounds fun. That sounds fun. I mean, it's nice to. It's always great to celebrate with the family, but of course, Eduardo left Paul, and he really doesn't have any other family because, of course, he had foster parents, so he's really all alone. And he tells him to enjoy. Paul then goes to the dance studio, says a little bird told him they're all fabulous, but then this scene, by the way, guys, in my opinion, I think is the best scene we have had on this show. Because all this time, people have said, oh, this is like Whiplash. This is like Whiplash. I've seen it, but I haven't. This was the scene where I saw that. I saw the J.K. Simmons, I saw the uh shit, I can't think of his name right now. You guys know what I'm talking about from Whiplash. I saw his character in Paul, and this was great. I loved it. We know that Paul is hurting, obviously, because of Eduardo leaving him. We know that's one of the reasons here. He's very frustrated, and you really see that in this scene. Paul goes to dance studio, says a little bird told him they're all fabulous, but he wants to be the judge of their collective brilliance, and he says if anyone has a need to be elsewhere, feel free to go and be his guest. No one leaves, and he says he assumes they know the music, and Daphne asks which moment he wants. He says childhood. Kiira tells him she has to go, tells him Claire won't disappoint. He asks if anyone else has to leave, and they show him the combination. He tells them to stop and keeps making them repeat it. We see him making them repeat it again and again and again and again. It's very reminiscent of Whiplash, where he played the drums and his hands started bleeding. And Patrice says she won't miss her flight because this maniac. Suzanne says her train left 20 minutes ago. And Mia says to stop fucking talking. Paul then fires one of the dancers right on the spot. He fires Mona and says it's because he just doesn't need her anymore. And I thought that's really when I was feeling like, holy shit, that's great. But that's true. I mean, they just fire people on the fly because she's just not needed. That's it. She's not needed. So she asks if she did something. He says the door is an exit sign above it for a reason. Wish her a happy Thanksgiving. He then tells them to do it again. He then stops them and says, since they're excruciatingly pleasing to watch, they will not have the pleasure of accompaniment. It smells like weakness in there. He says it reeks of mediocrity. He breaks the chair. Literally, he breaks the chair, and he says they have all been told not to dance, but feel. He says they disgust him. They've been seduced by all the emotional body, soul, mumbo jumbo, conniving, witchcraft, and he says no, nothing will replace the technical and the physical foundation that he has given to them. So he picks a part of the chair and he starts using these two parts of the chair, pretends they're like drumsticks as their accompaniment, and it's such an intense scene. I mean, he's basically turning into a monster in this scene, mainly because of the rage he's going through, and he makes them do it over again. But he's also very passionate about ballet, so you had to see this coming. And he says ballet is a classical dance from demanding grace and precision, rigor and craft. He says they will be lucky if they come anywhere close to perfection in their lifetime. He then stops and tells them they're done. He says each of them need to look deep inside and ask themselves if this is where they belong. He says he will be making some changes after Thanksgiving and wishes them good night. And they're all sitting, they're obviously sweating out of their minds. They say he's a fucking maniac, and that scene was just great. I've really been I think too critical on Paul. I think I really have. I mean, I just thought he was way too over the top, and now after a few episodes, now we know why. I mean, he's had a lot to deal with. He's lost, he didn't have parents, he had foster parents, he's now lost his boyfriend, he's lost a lot of things, and he's kind of alone, and now I can understand why Paul is so over the top. Plus, he's very passionate about ballet. He always will be. He always have that passion in him, and he doesn't like laziness. And I definitely really like that. So they all sit and catch their breaths, and Trey says that he is a narcissist, and Patrice says that she missed her flight, and Mia says that was supreme bullshit, and Ross says that it was terrorism, and Daphne says that they know this is typical of him. The holidays is when he really brings out the darkness, and Ross says it was beyond that, and Daphne says to not take it personally. Patrice asks if she knows what he means by making changes. Daphne says that she's going to call Kiira and make a plan, and basically they're going to try to figure out what to do to pull him out of it, because Daphne can tell that he is more upset than usual. Usually he's upset, but now he's even more upset. So basically, they're going to try to figure out a way to get him out of it. So basically, Claire leaves, gets into a cab, and Jessica opens an envelope which has a check inside of it for $35,000. She tells Molly she gets to dress up tomorrow, and they're going to Cafe Confits, and that check is much more important in episode 7. I didn't think much of it here, but it becomes very important in episode 7. So Prescott is with his friends, and Kiira comes out. He hears a story from Prescott's mother. She leaves to get her cell phone, and Prescott says she is like grains of sand. And Kiira takes a pill, then sees a little boy staring at her in the corner drinking wine. And you kind of see how fake her life is. I mean, Prescott's acting happy with his friends, and Kiira is it's all an act. It really is. And I like that scene. So Claire's with Bryan and asks if Frank knows that she's coming, and he says he knows. Claire looks at what used to be her house and seems reluctant. She seems very, reluctant to go in. She doesn't want to be reminded of what happened the last time she was there. And finally, in this episode, we find out what happened in the last time she was there and why she wanted to leave so badly. So she greets Frank, and he says to come over so he can see her, and you can tell right away the bad shape that Frank is in. However, whoever played Frank in this episode was amazing. I thought he did a great job. He says to come over so he can see her and says to look at what the goddamn cat dragged in. She goes over to hug him. He asks if she's taking a pity on him, and he says maybe someone will get a good meal around there now that she's back. He obviously doesn't want to see her. One, because she just left. Two, because of whatever happened, and we'll talk about that. And he says Bryan's a terrible cook, and Claire asks if he's hungry. He says he's not, but he is thirsty, and asks Bryan to get him a beer. She asks him how his pain is. He says now she suddenly cares. She asks if he's doing exercise. He says he can't do that when the place is a dump, and if Bryan lifts a finger once in a while, there might be some space. And I love that he calls Bryan fucko. I thought that was pretty funny. And Claire says it doesn't look, but you can also see that he obviously wants nothing to do with Bryan or Claire. He really doesn't. He doesn't see these people as his family, really. He's just going through a lot, and we realize why all this later. I like the way they very slowly reveal things. Claire says it doesn't look too bad, and Frank says she's a lousy liar. He says he can't remember the last time he heard a vacuum cleaner or smelled some pine sol, and he says Bryan is a poor excuse for a man, not even aware, not even a busboy. Claire tries to help him up the stairs, but Frank says he's got it. She says goodnight. He goes into his room. She wishes Bryan a good night, and then looks around her old room, which hasn't been touched since she ran away. I found that very interesting, but basically, yeah, her entire room has not been touched. So she puts a lock on her door to keep Bryan from coming in, and then Romeo writes a message in a bottle, and he gets another bottle and starts writing. Now, we see these various bottles. Now, what I'm assuming he's doing is, in order to write his novel and keep track of it, he puts pages into these bottles just so he can eventually put it all together. That's what I think he's doing. So, Bryan and Claire then make dinner. Frank tells him about this guy he knew, this guy from Philadelphia who swallowed a can of shellac, which apparently, according to Bryan, is a story Frank tells a lot. Frank says he did die from it, and he tells him another story about someone who said Jesus loves you in a Mexican prison. They seem to be bonding pretty well. He's just lightly joking with them. But Frank asks Bryan to escort him to the bathroom. They all then sit down to dinner. Frank carves it, and Bryan asks if he's got it. I was really worried Frank was gonna cut his hand in this scene. I thought that's where we're going. Thank God they didn't, because one, that would have been really stupid. Two, I just didn't want to see that. So they then all sit down to dinner, and you can see the suffering that Frank is going through, so I didn't want him to suffer more. Carves it, like I said. Bryan asks if he's got it. Frank says he does. They start eating, but they're not really talking. I mean, they're very silent. They're not talking a lot. I mean, it's just they're not really bonding very well, obviously, because of whatever has happened to them. So I like that scene. And Claire and Bryan then watch some cartoon. Bryan says he feels he was gone forever. And this scene with Bryan I really love. I mean, you really see we find out very subtly in the scene what's going on, and I loved it. It was genuinely shocking what was going on here. Bryan says he feels he was gone forever. And then again, not at all. He says it was messed up over there. Bad things happened to his unit, to him, things he saw, he did, and stuff he never thought he was capable of. He doesn't ever think he'll get the sound of Chinooks out of his head. He says she has no idea how hard for him it was to be stuck over there, knowing what she was going through. And she says she doesn't want to talk, but he says to listen. He says he never should have had to go. It was fucked up, but the thought of her kept him going. And he says sometimes he would close his eyes and see her face, imagining how she was handling things, and how those final months must have been for her. Again, we don't know what he's talking about. He says he knows it wasn't easy, and he asks what it was, and to just tell him if it was a boy or a girl. So yes, not only did he possibly have sex with her, he most likely did have sex with her, but Claire was pregnant when Bryan was overseas, and that is most likely the reason that Frank despises her. That is most likely the reason why she had to leave the company, and that's really what's going on. Now, what happened to this kid, we don't know, and I don't think we're going to find out because I don't feel it's really that important what happened to this kid. But just that reveal, I love because the whole entire show, they've been showing what Claire's been going through and why she wants nothing to do with Bryan. And yeah, it does make sense. Obviously, Bryan is the father of her child. That's very messed up. I mean, it's her brother we're talking about. And now we realize that she was pregnant. And I love finding that out. Just again, the little reveals like that are awesome. I love it. So Paul then, and I just thought that was an incredible ending. Frank basically made him go, and we realized then that Frank made him go because he wanted Bryan to die, and that makes perfect sense too. I mean, if anyone were to get his daughter pregnant, he obviously would be upset. He listens to, and I just thought it was really great. Paul then lies down on the couch by himself. He's listening to operatic music, and he then gets a guest, and it's Kiira. He opens the door, and all of the dancers are there, including Mona and all the board, and it's a really nice that they're all there to support him. That's how they're going to pull him out of it. They're all going to spend Thanksgiving because they see how lonely he is, which I like seeing. So Claire goes into her room, she opens up this box, and she takes something from him. We don't know what it is, but there's various things in there, and I was wondering, is there going to be like a picture of the baby in there? Are we going to find out? And Bryan didn't. I mean, I really didn't know how this episode was going to end, and I really loved that. I mean, after that reveal, I really didn't know what was going to happen. So Jessica's then at dinner with Molly, who tells her that the cranberry sauce looks like blood, and Jessica says to not be silly and it's very special. Molly says she can't stand the smell, and Jessica says they need to talk about tomorrow. Asks if she wants to go to the bookstore on the 16th Street. Molly asks where Peter is. She says she doesn't know, and Jessica says they're having a special night together, just the two of them, and Molly makes a scene. She clearly is not into this at all. She obviously wants her father there, and I mean, she's a little girl, so she's making a whole scene about it, and I like that Jessica didn't yell at her. I thought it was interesting that Jessica didn't yell because I think Jessica knows that a lot of this is their fault because, what Molly's gone through. It's very much is their fault that they got divorced and everything. So obviously she's really upset about that. And I don't think Molly's a spoiled brat. I can understand someone thinks that she's a brat after that scene. I don't think Molly's a spoiled brat. I think Molly is just going through a lot. She really wants her father back, and that's really what this is all about. She wants her father there. She doesn't just want to have dinner with her mother. She wants to dinner with both of her parents, which I think any kid that has divorced parents, they can relate to that. So Claire then finds Bryan asleep. This was very interesting. She lies down next to him, and I'm really wondering, what is she going to do here? Is she going to wake him up? But no, she kisses him, and then they start to have sex. So even though she got pregnant the last time, they have sex, and I feel like she did this to pull him out of his misery because they both go going through a lot, and I think she kind of thought this as a way for them just to heal, because clearly she knew that Bryan wanted to be with her in that way, so I think she just finally gave in because, one, I think she kind of wanted it to heal herself from all the pain. Two, I feel she just did it because she knew that Bryan needed it, so I thought that was definitely very interesting. And surprisingly, he didn't take advantage of her, like, they both were into it. It was interesting. So at Paul's apartment, everyone is singing along to Piano Man, and Reggie and Trey bond, and I thought that was funny the way that they were bonding over Trey's dog being named Derek Jeter, and then him having a cat that's named after the rival of Derek Jeter. So Mona's worried that Paul's gonna yell at her because Mona's there too, but Ashley's assuring her that he has forgotten all about it since he's having so much fun. And Ross then walks right past Kiira, and I'm wondering, obviously why, because we still know that whole thing going on between Ross and Kiira is going on. He goes to her bag to smoke some of her cocaine, and Paul asks Ross what he can do for him. Ross says he was hoping he could be a good host and show the secret study Evan's been raving about as he had heard. He has an incredible library, and Paul says he's more than welcome to go in there himself, and he says he's actually quite familiar with it. It's hardly a sight to him. He's seen it far too many times, and Ross then leaves the apartment. Kiira runs after him, tells him to come back, but he doesn't listen. He doesn't want to listen to Kiira. He's obviously really upset, of course, at Paul, but he leaves. So Claire climbs out of bed as Bryan sleeps and dresses herself. She plans on leaving, but then Bryan wakes up, and we see that Claire took the hospital bracelet of their daughter, and she lets him know they have a daughter, and that's something else that he wanted to know. And I like that she let him know, because obviously this was something that Bryan wanted to know. All the time when he was overseas, all he wanted to know was when she had the kid. I'm only to assume that when he returned, the kid was gone. I'm assuming that she probably put the kid up for adoption, or she gave the kid away. I mean, clearly the kid's not with her anymore, so their daughter's not with her. and that's understandable. I mean, when she's at a very prestigious company like that and then she leaves, she wants to start over. I can totally understand that. So Frank sleeps in his chair. Claire puts the hospital bracelet in his mouth to wake him up, and then she leaves. And I think she wanted Frank to know as well if it was a boy or girl because he didn't know. So I feel like Claire was just trying to fix things here. She could see what they were going through, and it was very interesting. So Paul then makes a speech talking about how they're his family, and he says they're all there to support him. He lets Mona know that while she's no longer with them, Jessica is preparing to write a favorable recommendation on her behalf, and it was really nice to see them all just having a great time and seeing Paul happy. Again, I really like seeing that. He says they care of their own. He says since they're all there, he wanted to lay rest a rumor. And this is interesting. He says Trey's promotion has absolutely nothing to do with their romantic relationship. Now, of course, him and Trey are not actually in a romantic relation, but he wants to sell it so that way he can make it seem like they're in this romantic relationship, and that's, he's not upset because of, that he's moved on, basically. So, Pasha then asks Mia how things went with the doctor, and she says her eye is fine and tells him to try some cornbread. Now, we can tell that there's definitely more going on, because one, the ending of this episode, two, we know that she had some sort of shocking test results, and we don't know what it was. So, I really like that scene. So, Paul then asks where Claire is. Ivana says she's new and doesn't know they all leave, and Paul kisses Trey, making it seem like they are romantically involved, and I wonder how long he's going to keep this up. I mean, we don't really see it even in episode 7, but I feel like he definitely is going to keep this up, so we're going to see what happens with this. And then we get to the ending of this episode, which was nothing short of crazy. This was a pretty insane ending, and a very eventful ending, a very great ending to get us to tune into episode 7. I mean, really, I was surprised it wasn't the penultimate episode because of how crazy this ending was. Mia dances in the apartment. It seems like she's feeling a lot better, but remember, she's drunk out of her mind right now, so I was thinking, okay, maybe they're trying to show that Mia is better. But then I thought, what about those test results? So Romeo continues writing. He's distracted by the constant shaking around him, and he sees what looks like Mia dancing. And Claire is back in we don't see actually what he sees, but Claire's then back in New York, and she sees Mia on a gurney going to the hospital. And I'm just like, okay, she was dancing. Because I was thinking maybe she passed out. And then she sees Romeo, and all he's saying is, blood is in the water, blood is in the water, blood is in the water. He's saying it over and over again. It's almost like he was just in this trance because of what he's seen. I feel like Romeo's never seen something this horrific before. This really freaked Romeo out, obviously. So we realize he has rewritten the Velveteen Rabbit. He gives her back the book. He's rewritten it, and Claire goes into the apartment, and it's not the same book at all. It's very like dark and bloody and red, and she goes in the apartment, and all she sees is blood everywhere, realizing that so basically Mia tried to kill herself, and that's how the episode ends. So yes, now I kind of saw this coming. I will say that. I think I saw Mia trying to kill herself for a while now. I mean, we've seen everything she's gone through. She doesn't have a very good life. She's going through a lot. Whatever those test results were obviously very bad because it caused her to try to kill herself. And you don't just try to kill yourself for no reason. But holy shit, I mean, I don't know why Mia tried to kill herself. Well, I do, because of episode 7. But, why did Mia try to kill herself? I mean, I really wasn't sure if she killed herself or someone tried to kill her. But that was a phenomenal ending, I have to say. A great ending there, an amazing episode overall, and I really did love it, I have to say. How long is Paul going to keep this charade up of him and Trey being romantically involved? Obviously, they're not. They never had a connection. Trey was obviously just playing along with it eventually, but he doesn't know really what's going on either. So how long is he going to keep this up? I'm not really sure. I'm very concerned about Romeo. Romeo's like a little child, honestly. I've said this before. Romeo is like a little child, and I like that. That's something I like about Romeo, is childlike innocence. But now it seems like he doesn't really have that innocence anymore. He has obviously been phased by Mia's murder. He's probably never seen anything like this before. He's probably been homeless, for a long time. He said he was homeless since he was in college, and basically, I really feel like Romeo has a lot of things to figure out of what's going to happen here. And what does blood is in the water mean? We don't know what that means. Now, I'm assuming it means that he saw blood in the water, but then he says again in the next episode, and it seems like it means something a bit more. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I like seeing Paul happy, like I said. I thought that was definitely something I enjoyed seeing. Now let's talk about Bryan. Are we ever going to meet Claire's daughter? Are we going to meet her? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm hoping we do. It's something that I think we need to see eventually, but for right now, at least, we have yet to meet Claire's daughter. I don't know if we're going to meet her. But then as far as Bryan and her go, I like the scene with her and Bryan. I thought it was definitely really great stuff there. with her and Bryan basically, I think, healing each other of their pain and just realizing what they're going through. I think that's why Claire kissed him. I think she just realized what they were going through, and it's gonna be interesting to see. It seems like she kind of needs Bryan now. I think she's realizing that she needs Bryan. It's not normal without him, and I feel like that's what she needs. Jessica and Molly, I felt really bad for Jessica because, of course, her husband not being there, that's totally out of her control. Her husband's left them, obviously, and now she's really having to deal with Molly wanting her father back. And it's something that Jessica didn't really think was going to. I think Jessica knew was going to happen, but I think she was just hoping that Molly would be satisfied. But obviously, she misses her father, obviously. So Jessica really needs to figure out what to do here, and she really has a difficult decision on what she's going to do with this. I'm not really sure what she's going to do here. Now, I do know what she does in episode 7. I won't tell you guys, but yeah. And then as far as Kiira goes, I really felt bad for this, fake lifestyle that Kiira's in. I mean, obviously, again, I feel bad for Prescott, but also just her life in general is fake. She doesn't actually love Prescott. She doesn't actually want to be with Prescott. She's with him for money. She loves Jasper. That's the person she loves. And definitely very interesting. By the way, guys, I didn't read what the term F.U.B.A.R means because all it said was it was a military acronym. That's literally all it said. It didn't tell me what it means, so okay, whatever. If you don't want to tell me, fine. But what also were the test results of Mia's? What were her test results? We don't know what she had. Well, we find out in the next episode, but again, what were the test results? We'll have to see. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I thought this was an amazing episode. Overall, a really great episode. It wasn't the best episode of the season. I did think the last episode was better overall, but the scene with Paul was amazing. The reveal with Claire was amazing. I'm just loving it. We're getting all the pieces together, and really, this show is really delivering. If you weren't loving the show at first, you have to love it after these last 2 episodes. I think it's really been delivering very well, and episode 7 as well. It's amazing. Episode 7, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, is the best episode of so far that I've seen. Yes, I'm on the finale. Like I said, I have not even started the finale yet, but that's where I am on. Let me know if you guys saw this episode, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for episode 7 of Flesh and Bone, and I will see you guys for that. So, okay, bye.